Hey class, this is Mrs. Cornett, and I'm going to show you a few examples from section 4.2. This is specifically about completing the table of values for an equation in order to graph it on a coordinate grid. The instructions here say complete the table of values, then plot the solution points on a rectangular coordinate system. Take a look at 17. In 17, you have a top row where in blue you have the variable x, and then you have the numbers -2, 0, 2, 4, and 6. And then in the next row, you have the equation y equals 3x minus 4. And then you have those blanks right underneath each of those numbers. So let me show you how this works. If we take the equation y equals 3x minus 4, the first number that I want you to substitute in for x is that -2. So that would be 3 times -2 minus 4, and then simplify that expression. 3 times -2 is -6, minus 4 is -10, and then you'd write that answer right below the -2 in the table. And so next you would say if x was 0, this would be 3 times 0 minus 4, which is -4. Next, if x is 2, 3 times 2 minus 4, well, 3 times 2 is 6, minus 4 is a +2. And then if x is 4, that would be 3 times 4, which is 12, minus 4, which is a +8. And one more, 3 times 6, which is 18, minus 4, which is 14. And then you'll just take those 5 ordered pairs and plot them on this coordinate grid. So the first ordered pair is -2, 10. So it's to the left 2 spots, and then all the way down here to -10, 0, -4, +2, +2 is right here, +4, 8 is right here, and then 6, 14 kind of goes off the screen. But once you have these 4, you can just connect the dots. Okay, take a look at 19. We have that same x values. Well, almost the same. -2, 0, 4, 6, and 8. And then you have the equation y equals the fraction 3/2 times x plus 5. And so we'll just go through the same process. If x is -2, that would be 3/2 times -2 plus 5. This fraction part, you can multiply fractions really easily, especially if you put a denominator of 1 under that whole number, -2. Multiplying straight across, -3 times -2 is 6. 2 times 1 is 2. And so this entire fraction piece is a +3, and then we'll add 5 because that was part of the equation to get 8. This next x value is easy because it's a 0. -3/2 times 0 is 0, and so this is a 5. -3/2 times 4, I'm going to go ahead and just say 4 over 1. That is -12 over 2, which is -6. Then if you combine -6 with that +5, it's a -1. And 2 more, -3/2 times 6 over 1, and that equals -18/2, which is -9. Now combine -9 with the +5 to get -4, and then -3/2 times 8 over 1 is -24/2, which is -12, combined with the +5 to get -7. So we've just worked 5 substitution problems, but now we have 5 ordered pairs that we can put on this grid. So the first one is -2, which is 2 spaces to the left, and 8 spaces up. That's -2, 8. Then we have 0, 5, which is just 5 spaces up. 4, -1, it's 4 to the right and down 1. 6, -4 is 6 spaces to the right and down 4. And 8, 7 is 8 spaces to the right and down 7. And then from here, once you have these ordered pairs, it's not perfectly straight because I don't have a ruler, but that's the line that goes with the equation y equals -3/2 x plus 5. Okay, let's look at these. The instructions are exactly the same. It says complete the table and use the results to sketch the graph of the equation. Number 3, the equation is y equals x squared plus 3. And you see the x values -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. So let's just start with -2. This will be -2 squared plus 3. We need to do the -2 squared first, which -2 times -2 is 4, and 4 plus 3 is 7. Next, if x is -1, this would be -1 squared plus 3. Well, -1 times -1 is +1, and when you add +1 plus 3, that's a 4. If x is 0, 0 squared still is 0, plus 3 is 3. 1 squared plus 3 is going to be 4. And then do you see 2 squared plus 3 is going to be back to 7. Now, interesting, do you see the pattern? It goes 7, 4, 3, 4, 7. It's because the x value is being squared. And so if x is -2 or +2, it's going to result in the same y value. So let's go ahead and graph this one. -2, 7 will be 2 spaces to the left and 7 spaces up. So about right there. -1, 4 will be 1 space to the left and 4 spaces up. 0, 3, and then +1, +4 is 1 space to the right and 4 up. +2, +7. Now it looks kind of strange, much different than before. This is probably something you saw back in high school. This is a parabola. It's a U-shaped, and that's what happens anytime your x value is being squared. Okay, let's take a look at number 5. The equation is y equals the absolute value of x plus 1, and we have the values -3, -2, -1, 0, and 1. So let's work through a few of these. If x is -3, this would be the absolute value of -3 plus 1. Now, before we can take the absolute value, we need to first combine those two numbers together. And so -3 plus 1 would be the absolute value of -2, which is +2. Because remember, the absolute value is just counting the spaces any number is away from 0. Okay, next, if x is -2, this would be the absolute value of -2 plus 1, which is -1, and the absolute value of -1 is 1. Okay, next, if x is -1, this will be -1 plus 1, which is the absolute value of 0, which is 0. If x is 0, this would be 0 plus 1. The absolute value of a +1 is 1. And one more, the absolute value of 1 plus 1 is the absolute value of 2, which is also 2. And then let me graph this for you. This -3, 2 is 3 spaces to the left and 2 spaces up. -2, 1 is about there. -1, 0, and then 0, 1, and then 1, 2. And this is similar to a parabola, but it's actually more of a V-shaped instead of a U. But this is the graph of an absolute value. I want you to be able to recognize problems like this and know exactly what to do. It says sketch the graph of the equation and label the coordinates of at least 3 solution points, and then it just gives you an equation. And so I just want to make sure that you, when you see something like this on WebAssign or on an exam, that you know exactly how to generate coordinate pairs that go along with the particular equation that you're working with. So let's take a look at 7. This is 4x plus y equals 6. I'm going to make a suggestion to you that anytime you're asked to generate a list of ordered pairs, it's going to be best to solve the equation for y first. And we're going to practice this in another section, but I want you to move all the pieces away from the variable y, and so you have the equation set up y equals and then the rest of the equation. 10 and 11 are already set up that way for you. It's really easy to move pieces around. We're going to subtract this entire 4x first, and then we have y equals 6 minus 4x, and that's the starting place for this problem. So here's how we're going to generate our ordered pairs. We're going to sketch a table, and we'll have an x row and a y row, and then you really can just put any numbers for the x coordinates. I suggest that you keep it small, that you use whole numbers and that you use at least one positive, one negative, and a 0. So I'm going to use -1, 0, 1, and 2. And those numbers I completely just pulled out of my brain. You could use different numbers if you want to, but remember when you're graphing on WebAssign, the coordinate grid is not really big, and so you don't want to choose really large numbers because they may not fit on your coordinate grid. Okay, so here's what you do. Just like before, we're going to do this one at a time, and we're going to substitute each of these x values in the equation that I have the red box drawn around to find what y equals. And so the first one is 6 minus 4 times -1, and I'm going to treat that -4 as a -4 times -1, which is a +4. Combine that +4 with the +6, and that's a 10. If x is 0, this would be 6 minus 4 times 0, which is 6. Next, if x is +1, this would be 6 minus 4 times 1, which is really just 6 minus 4, which is 2. And one more, if x is +2, this will be 6 minus 4 times 2, which is 6 minus 8, which is -2. And I've already done some graphing on the previous page, so I'm not going to graph these ordered pairs, but now you have 4 ordered pairs, -1, 10, 0, 6, 1, 2, and 2, -2. Okay, let me show you one more on this video. Number 11 is y equals 5 minus the absolute value of x. So I'm going to just pick some numbers here. I'm going to say -2, 0, and 2. Again, your x values, you can pick whichever 3 you want to. So if x is -2, this would be 5 minus the absolute value of -2, which is really 5 minus 2, which is 3. If x is 0, this is 5 minus the absolute value of 0, which is 5. And if x is +2, this is 5 minus the absolute value of 2, which is 5 minus 2, which is 3. And so your 3 ordered pairs are -2, 3, 0, 5, and 2, 3. Okay, that's going to be all for this video. Please let me know if you have any questions while you're working on your homework.